Welcome back to the Bama Tailgate Show as Alabama gets set to take on LSU. That is a 6:30 kickoff at Bryant-Denny Stadium. Great to have our friend Chris Lowe from On3 join us as this segment's brought to you by the great people at Visit Sevierville. And I'm telling you right now is a great time to visit Sevierville. The leaves have changed. I was just there last week, by the way, in the Smoky Mountains. And you can get there, go hiking, go to the national parks and the walking trails and the zip line adventures and horseback riding, all that stuff in Sevierville. And Sevierville Winterfest is actually kicking off today. So check that out. It's all the way through February 16th. And there are millions of lights along the parkway in Sevierville, Pigeon Forge, Gatlinburg. And guests can also enjoy special Winterfest attractions like Shadrack's Christmas Wonderland. That's an LED drive-through light show. And you can find out more information on Harvest Fest, Winterfest, all that stuff at visitsevierville.com. And besides that, we also have Talking Fish.
When you head to the Smoky Mountains, it's only natural to visit Sevierville. Say it with me now. It ain't that hard. Sevierville. Give me some Finn. Your Smokies start here.
All right, Chris Lowe, Mick Gillespie, Bama, LSU. This game is so different now that Brian Kelly was fired by the powers that be in Louisiana. We kind of talked about this during the off week, but now you get into this matchup between Alabama and LSU, and I'll be honest, not really sure what to expect from LSU.
Well, it's good. Bama better get used to it because two of the next three teams they play, or certainly the SEC teams, Mick, are going to have interim coaches. You know, Frank Wilson at LSU, DJ Durkin when they play out Auburn there at the end of the year on the Plains. So it is a little bit different. And sometimes when you've had a shakeup like this and a new coach comes in, the pressure's off, kids play a little looser. I think that team genuinely likes Frank Wilson. I'm talking about LSU right now. So you don't really know sometimes exactly what you're getting into if you're looking at it from Bama's perspective. Now, I think playing in Tuscaloosa makes this an easier lift. I'm not saying it's going to be an easy lift, but I think this is one where you'd certainly, when you don't really know, you're flying a little bit blind, Mick. I think you'd certainly rather be playing this kind of game at home as opposed on the road. But it's still a talented LSU team. They've had trouble scoring points. They are on defense certainly capable of winning against anybody they play. And that's the thing that if you're Alabama and make them sort of play from behind on the road, I think that's going to be really key in this game. And Bama, you know, they did do that against South Carolina, albeit, but they've done that in some other games. And when they do that with their ability to stop people on defense, because I think one of maybe the more underrated parts of what Bama's done since that FSU game is the way they played on defense, in particular in the second half. Kane Womack's guys have really stepped it up. So many games in the SEC are won. And there were 6 games last week, Mick, 6. 5 of them were decided by a touchdown or less. So you have got to play winning defense in the fourth quarter, and Kane Womack's group has done that.
You know, one of the things that one of the things I've heard from fans of other teams when they talk about Alabama is how disciplined the Crimson Tide are. I've seen the same thing, how disciplined they are, and it's helped them in these close games. It's helped them win close games because of the fact that they are disciplined, and that's been one of the keys to success. But when you play close games, sometimes you lose. And I think that for this Alabama team, Chris, eventually they're going to have to kind of start to separate themselves a little bit from the competition, or they're going to end up falling into one of these games that they can't come back and win, or they lose a close game.
Yeah, I think fans in the SEC really, to some degree, Mick, are going to have to maybe reprogram their minds. When you look at the league this year, and there's just not a lot of separation, period. I mean, take Kentucky. Kentucky really has Texas beaten a few weeks ago, and down the goal line, they can't get it in. They lose in overtime. And then they come back the next week. Tennessee just absolutely boat races them. And they beat Auburn this past weekend, which ultimately cost Hugh Freeze his job. We've seen games like that, those types of games all year long. Mississippi State's another great example. Early in the year, they outplayed Tennessee the entire game. They lose the Vols in overtime. They outplayed Texas, way ahead of Texas. Texas comes back and beats them. This past week, though, they're able to get Arkansas, snapping a 15-game SEC losing streak. The league's been like that. And you know what? Guess what? Next year, it's only going to get harder when you go to 9 league games. So I think there's a lot of reassessing, rethinking among fans and donors and boosters what constitutes a good season. There's going to be a lot of 3- and 4-loss teams in the SEC next year in particular. They're going to be pretty good football teams.
Why aren't we seeing the same balance in the Big Ten? You know, like the SEC has a lot of teams near the top, but the Big Ten, it's like they're so separated, the elite teams and then a bunch of teams down at the bottom. It feels like the SEC is just, there's really no super elite team, but maybe it's because everybody's so good.
Well, I think part of it is what's happened in the portal. And there's more of a level playing field. I think the SEC schools all the way down through have invested a ton of money. I mean, who would have thought 10 years ago that Ole Miss would spend somewhere between $13, $14, $15 million plus on its roster? Now, nobody knew what NIL was then, but you've got a lot of schools like that. You know, Tennessee has spent 20 to 22 million on their roster this year. I think that's part of it. But it's almost flipped, I would say, in some ways. I thought the SEC, when Bama and Georgia were dominated, 15 and 16 and 17, of course, LSU in 19, and Bama again in 20. I thought the league in that stretch was pretty top-heavy in the SEC. Sort of the same teams, Georgia, Bama, Georgia. As I said, LSU in 19. And then there was a gap, a pretty wide gap between those teams and everybody else. Well, that gap has closed in a hurry in this league, and I think you're seeing that every week, and I think we'll continue to see. I think there's still some surprises down the road this year in the SEC when you look at who has to play whom. You think about it. You got A&M has to play at Texas that last game. Vandy has to play at Tennessee. I mean, the mere fact that we were still talking about Vandy in a playoff race is all the perspective you need of what the SEC has become now.
Bama against LSU is such a tough game for the Crimson Tide because of the fact that LSU has talent. You know, they're going to be really motivated to beat Alabama, and the coaching, hey, they can do whatever they want. I mean, it's not like they're going to change anything that's not already happened, right? I mean, that you worry about getting fired now. I feel like you can throw caution to the wind in a situation like this. How can Alabama be prepared to take on an LSU team that could, literally go out there and roll the dice a lot?
It's tough. It's not easy. I think coaches would tell you these are scary types of games when you're going up against a team that's, as you said, throw caution to the wind. They're going to roll the dice. Really anything goes. I think if you're Bama, though, you've had a week off. You've had a chance to sort of rest and get healthy, get your minds right. This team has been, to me, exemplary in the way they have responded from that first stinker against Florida State, in the way they have done what they needed to do. And I give Kalen and his staff, the top all the way down, I think the way they've communicated, the way they've gotten their points across, the way they practice this team, there's just been a harder edge period. You've seen more emotion. You've seen these guys respond. And to get to this point, and again, coaches aren't going to say it, but I still think, Mick, you got to have those types of games. Maybe you don't want to lose them. And I think you got to have a game like they had against South Carolina 2 weeks ago. That looked like a heavy-legged Alabama football team that had played 5 straight weeks against SEC teams. That's hard to do. I don't care who you're playing. And most of those games were against ranked teams. And to me, it says a lot more about Alabama, positive, pro, that they could, in a tough place to play, could win it. And then you get a week off, an extra week off after that. than it does, well, maybe they weren't focused, maybe they didn't have their A game. You just got to be able in this league, more so than ever, find ways to win those kind of games. Regroup, catch your breath, which they should have had a chance to do, and now you sort of can taste it. You got 3 games in the league. You're going to be favored in all 3 games. But 3 teams, even Auburn. I think Auburn is a talented football team. Even with the games they lost before Freeze was fired, they weren't getting blown out. They just couldn't finish games. Didn't have any offense. So these are 3 teams that certainly could beat Alabama. I just haven't seen Alabama since that debacle against Florida State play what I would call a bad football team. I haven't seen them play with any lack of inspiration or any lack of focus. You nailed it. They played with a lot of discipline. They got a lot of players who stepped up and played key roles. And I like what the 2 coordinators have done. Ryan Grubb has been lights out on key plays. When they needed to dial something up, he's done it. And as I mentioned earlier, Kane Womack and his defense, getting it done when it counts in the fourth quarter.
Heisman odds right now heading into this week, 3-man race, former Alabama player, Julian Sayin, now the Ohio State quarterback, plus 175. You got Fernando Mendoza, Indiana quarterback, plus 225. Alabama quarterback Ty Simpson, plus 350. I'll tell you what Ty has in his back pocket is a bunch of big games. LSU's a big game. Oklahoma's a big game. The Iron Bowl's a big game, and an SEC championship game if Alabama were to get there. So he should have a lot of opportunities to make up ground in this Heisman race.
It's I think it's a dead heat. And all 3 of those kids you mentioned, we could probably make a strong case for all of them. Mendoza's numbers might be a little bit better, but all 3 of their numbers, and their impact on their football team. I was in Columbus last week, Mick, and boy, Sayin's a first-year starter. And you're right, a former quote-unquote teammate of Ty Simpson. I actually wrote about that last week, that for about 4 weeks, they were on the same team together practicing. And now here they are, 2 of the top Heisman candidates in all of college football. And think about the what-ifs. What if Nick doesn't retire in 23? I don't think Sayin transfers. What does that mean for Simpson? Austin Mack's probably not coming in because he came in to follow Ryan Grubb and Kalen DeBoer. I just find those types of things fascinating. But boy, he is really good, accurate, great release, just in the pocket, one cool customer. Now, he has a great, and I mean a great offensive line. Those guys are terrific in front of him. I think Alabama's good in the offensive line. I don't think they're as good as Ohio State. And he also has, and this is not to diminish anything that Jeremy Bernard or Ryan Williams have done, he may have the 2 best receivers in football he's throwing to. I mean, Jermaine Smith, if he were eligible, would be the number 1 player picked in the draft this year. And Carnell Tate ain't bad. So they both, Simpson and Sayin, have really good guys to throw to. They both have really good offensive lines. It's going to be, in the last couple of years, I've sort of had a feeling once we hit mid-November who was going to win the Heisman. I'm not sure about you, Mick. I tell you what, I don't know that I'd be surprised that anybody of those 3, even Marcel Reed. What if Texas A&M closes this thing out and doesn't lose? Right. He has a huge game in the championship game against Alabama. I mean, he's another kid from Nashville who's gotten better and better. He's had big games, big throws, and he has the game winner against Notre Dame earlier this year. So much of the time winning the Heisman, there's all sorts of factors, and I've voted in it for 25 plus years, but so much of the time, and you just hit on it, it's big performances on big stages late in the year, because that's where the voters remember. They see it. You're on TV, and if you're in a team like an Alabama, like an Indiana, like an A&M, like a Ohio State that's playing for a playoff spot or a top 10 type team, you're going to get probably a little bit more cachet. But all 4 of those guys are, and all 4 of them have played really good football. I got to think, and maybe I strike out and miss this one, I got to think the winner is going to come from among those 4 players. Yeah, I do too. Hey, guys, don't forget about our AveD, Mick Nation. Hit that QR code right there, and you can win hats. We got hats. We got swag.
cash prizes each week, and it's free. So check it out. Avenue D, Mick Nation, hit that QR code. Also, don't forget that we will be doing the show at Innisfree this Friday, 1 until 3. Jay Coker, we got some former players that are saying that they're going to be there as well, so it should be a lot of fun. Our friend Cruz Oxen Riders coming by, and that is at Innisfree on Friday for the tailgate show. And we want you to be there and hang out with us. All right, let's talk about this Auburn situation. I tell you what, I think Hugh Freeze is a good coach. It wasn't working out. I'm sure that John Cohen had a ton of pressure to make a move. But, man, I'll tell you what, it's going to be hard to find somebody better than him, although the results weren't very good for him. And I know when you score 3 against Kentucky after the way Tennessee ripped them up on their home field, you know, you're probably feeling like things aren't working. But you talk about buyouts, you talk about available coaches. There's 4 jobs open now in the SEC. Seems like this is a really tough situation for Auburn to be in.
Every fan base thinks in the SEC, I say most of them, that they've got the best job. Mick, you know that. You hear it all the time. That, hey, why would this coach not want our job? And certainly Auburn, you hear a lot of that from Auburn right now. I get it. You know, same from LSU, same from Florida, same when if Alabama had opened, you know, when Nick left, Tennessee. And a lot of these these schools have a lot in common. They've had to hire a bunch of coaches. Alabama's sort of the exception. Georgia's the exception. They've had the same coach forever, you know, but the Auburns and the Tennessees and now the LSU, Arkansas, those schools have had to hire. Florida, a bunch of football coaches. I still think Auburn is a really good job. I understand you've got that behemoth of being Bama in your state. But I always look at, what has this school been able to produce? Yeah, there's been some dysfunction. Yeah, this will be their 4th coach in the last 7 years. I know Auburn fans sometimes don't want to hear that, but it's facts. It is their 4th coach in 7 years. But if you look at Auburn football over going back to, say, 2010, they won it all in 2010. Gus was there in his first year in 2013. They played for it in 2013. In 2017, they beat Georgia and Alabama in back-to-back weeks at the end of the season to get into the SEC title game. Now, they had to play Georgia again, which was a tough blow and lost. But had they won that, they're going to play for the national title again. So that's 3 times that they've won it, played for it, or right there on the cusp of having a chance to play for it. So 3 times going back, what's that, the last 15 years?
Yeah.
With different coaches. So that tells me that, yes, you can win at a high level there. You got to get the right guy. And people say, well, they've had bad hires. Maybe they're not the right fits, what have you. I think the most important thing right now for Auburn, because, again, it's not like they just were getting plastered this year. They just couldn't score any points.
Right.
That defense, DJ Durkin's defense is the real deal. They got a lot of good players on that side of the ball. Mick, they got to get it right at quarterback. You got to find that guy at quarterback. And they haven't been able to do it. They never were able to do it in Freeze. They couldn't find a guy that was that difference maker you need. I mean, and again, using Bama as an example, Ty Simpson hadn't scratched in 3 years, Alabama. He hadn't really had a shot. He gets his chance this year in his 4th year on campus. Ryan Grubb and DeBoer, they've used him perfectly. That kid has grown. He is a born leader. Those kids rally around him. Bama got it right at quarterback this year. That's what's got to happen at Auburn. Whoever the coach is, if it's John Sumrall, I think he's probably the top of the guy, the top of the list right now. They'll talk to a lot of people. But whoever it is, they better, in this portal, you better go get a quarterback who can play. Now, they got the young kid, Deuce, that they felt like was really talented, but didn't play him. So maybe he's that guy. But it would be his first year as a starter. But that people ask me what's got to happen there on the Plains. That it starts right there. Is whoever it is, they got to have better quarterback play, and they better get somebody that's dynamic and can level the playing field for you at that position.
Yeah, right. Well, you got to have a good quarterback. Tommy Tuberville, the guy running for governor, I guess he's a senator now, and he says that he was the coach that beat Alabama 6 times in a row at Auburn, which has never happened before or since. He said that he was suggesting Diego Pavia is someone that they should have thought about. And I guess, hindsight is, always hindsight. But, at the same time, you're right. The quarterback position, it just didn't work out down there. But I can't put it all on the quarterback. The offensive line, I watched the Oklahoma game. They looked awful. I mean, they were just getting thrown around. If you're a quarterback and you're lining, but, blocking, the other thing is that this conference is just so balanced. Like everybody can beat you. Like we were talking about before. It just feels like their expectations there are unrealistic. And what's going to happen is they could fall into the same trap Alabama did. And I think that when I look at the situation at LSU, they could too, where it's like, you got rid of Gene Stallings and then all of a sudden you have all these guys that can't win. And then you keep, and then you got to give them a couple years. And then you fall into this deal where it's like a black hole of losing. I went to school back in those days, and a lot of people don't remember that. But before Shula, and everybody wants to contend for a championship. But I hope, to me, I mean, just, being on the tailgate show and being a Bama guy, I hope Alabama takes advantage of this in the recruiting game, because that's another area where, you when you switch out coaches this much, it's hard to kind of have a relationship with the guys that you want to come on the team because they don't know these guys.
Well, stability is important. And I think more than ever, being able to have that guy as your head coach who can galvanize the money people, that they're willing to step up and spend the money. I talked to Saban last week about this very subject. And a lot of schools have boosters that are wealthy. But it's not just that. It's having guys who are wealthy, who are willing to invest the money for a coach to build his roster. That, Nick said, that to me, that's the most important thing now in football. And you've seen some schools jump out there before others. Tennessee was probably one of the ones on the front end when they went out and got Auburn, and that backfired. He took them to the playoff, but it was more the defense. This was really the first year that LSU had done it. It had spent a ton of money on their roster, I think around 18, 20 million, but they fired their head coach. So getting that guy who wins enough, who the money people, the people that are the difference makers on that side of the aisle, are willing to, hey, you know what, this guy's going to get it done. We're going to spend money. Ole Miss is a great example of that. Ole Miss has invested a lot of money because of what Lane Kiffin has done there, and they've continued to do that. They believed in him. They believed if they got him players, he would produce. Well, he hasn't gone to the playoff yet. I know people say, well, he hasn't gone to the playoff. He hasn't won an SEC title. No, but let's be honest. To me, when you look at places and coaches and jobs, I think it's fair to look at what's happened there the previous 20, 30, 40 years. And he's done things that Ole Miss haven't been done before, and they've stepped up and spent the money. So I think that's really important. We'll see what happens at Auburn. You're right, not just the quarterback situation. There are things that they did repeatedly that good football teams don't do. I really, though, think if they can keep that roster together, for the most part, some of the guys are leaving anyway, that they still have a chance to be. I don't think they're that far off from being, an 8, 9, 10 win football team. I know fans get tired. I get it. I understand why Auburn did what they did. Freaks have been there 3 years and they hadn't won. It was 6-16 against SEC teams. There are not a lot of schools going to put up with that. And but I still don't think they're just way, 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 way off on talent. They just got to figure out a way to get the most out of that talent and spend some money to get guys at key positions. I mean, and you know what those positions are: quarterback, pass rusher, skill guy on offense, and probably guys in the back end, that can help take away other teams' passing games. And I'm sure they'll be looking for it. But I do think it's a good job. I don't know. We could sit here for hours and make a debate what's the best job in the SEC or the two best jobs in the SEC, and it changes. Was Alabama the best job in 2007 when Nick took over? I don't think so. Is it one of the best now? Yeah. I mean, it was LSU the best job. Nick got to LSU in what, 2000, I think?
Yeah.
People have a hard time. They think I'm crazy when I say this. LSU had 9 losing seasons in the previous 11 years when he got there.
They weren't any good. They
No.
Shank was. I think it was Shank or maybe Mike Johnson. One of the guys on the shows this week. Maybe it was Mike Johnson. He was asking me like what LSU was before because I don't even know if he was alive back then, which is crazy, right? He was definitely a little kid. Makes us feel old. The Jerry DiNardo days, right? And I'm like, yeah, they were kind of 7-5, 8-4 type team. Like they could beat you, but they didn't win any big games. They weren't contending for any championships. They were just kind of like.
Here's a good one for you, Mick. Here's a good one.
Where's your comp?
I forgot about this. His last game at Vandy in somewhere in the 90s, they lost 65-0 to Tennessee. He was named that next week or 2 weeks later as the head coach at LSU. Can you imagine that happening in today's?
No.
There's no way. No way.
Mm-mm. Who would you and this wasn't on the game card. Let me say this, and then we're gonna keep this conversation going because I gotta promote this real quick for you guys. NewLifeArt.com. Daniel Moore, Heisman Heights. We're giving 30% off with our promo code Bama Tailgate at New Life Art this week. Heisman Heights. That's Devontae Smith with his Heisman moment against LSU down in Death Valley. And for all of you guys that want to buy what you want, the canvas, you want the full-size print, you want a mug, all that, 30% off when you use our promo code. So I don't want to forget about that because I want you guys to take advantage of it and, and put that on the wall. And you can see mine behind me. That one's one of the cooler ones that Daniel Moore's ever done. What's your comp for the old LSU? Just for, for conversation's sake, that LSU team back in the days before Nick Saban got there, who would they be comparable to now?
So in the 90s, basically.
Yeah, in the 90s, before they were like a good rival and one of the teams vying for a title every 5 years.
I don't know, because I think that seems so mind-boggling that LSU, who I think is, if it's not the best job in America, it's one of the best 2 or 3 or 4, would ever have a stretch ever in that state with the high school players and the talent and the way that is the flagship school in that state, would have 9 years where they had losing records in 11-year span. So I don't know. Tennessee had some seasons there where they seemed to recruit pretty well, but just didn't have a lot of really good.
That's what I said too.
Records,
I said Tennessee. That's exactly what I said. Tennessee.
Alabama had that stretch before Nick got there, where if you go back to look at the recruiting rankings, Alabama was always up there pretty high, but they didn't have a lot of great years.
No,
I just think it can happen anywhere.
Tennessee.
Yeah,
it was Tennessee to me. Like kind
of
like
Florida. What about Florida? The last 10 years
could be Florida.
I mean, what have they done in 10 years?
Yeah, I know.
And go look in the recruiting rankings the last 10 years. I guarantee you Florida's up there pretty high.
Well, this is why. Well, now I want to bring this up because we're going to talk about Florida. Hey guys, we're going to talk a little bit of Kalshi because I want you, Chris, to look at the markets right now where they think Lane Kiffin's going to end up because he's the odds-on favorite to become, according to people in the exchange market at Kalshi.com, a coach at multiple schools, including Florida. But Kalshi, guys, legal in all 50 states, better odds. There's no house vig. Prices are set by supply and demand, no limits. Live trading, flexibility, transparent pricing, and it's beyond just the NFL. It's when you see election night, like last night, like people just sit there and that's where the markets come from. Kalshi. All right, so I'm just going to throw some at you, Chris, and then see where you kind of rank against Kalshi. Lane Kiffin to Florida. What do you think?
As soon as I answer this question, it's going to be, well, Chris Lowe's reporting that Lane Kiffin's going to do this. I think this is what I think.
Just give me your odds. Give me an odds. You don't even have to say. I think he's going to Florida. So
I think Lane Kiffin right now doesn't know what he's going to do based on my conversations with him.
Okay.
And I think because of how sour it got when he was flirting with Auburn a few years ago and the distractions and that team went in the tank, down the season. He does not want that to happen again. They've got a playoff football team at Ole Miss. That said, I think with everything that he's been able to accomplish there, the way he's been able to turn his life around, the way that university and community have treated him, it will be hard for him to pry himself away from that. But if you're looking at it through his eyes, are you ever going to have a year when you're this hot, when you've done some of the things he's done at Ole Miss, and two of the top, 7 or 8 jobs in America come open, and they're both interested in you?
Yeah, right.
So if he leaves, I think Florida makes probably the most sense. He's got family ties there. I think he's always been, back when he was younger, big fan of Steve Spurrier. There's just a lot there. And in that state, you should have a chance every single year. Not that you're going to need one every single year. Going back to our discussion about quarterbacks, I think you're going to have a chance every single year to get a premium elite quarterback.
All right, Kalshi has him as 47% of the money being put on him. Eli Drinkowitz, 22%. Jed Fish, 17%. And there's a couple other guys that are on there, but Jeff Brom and Lincoln Riley. But Lane Kiffin, by far, the overall favorite that the public thinks is going to end up.
If I were making odds, he would be mine too. Jeff Brom's another one, Mick. I would not be floored to see Jeff Brom get the job that, if it is Lane, that he doesn't get. There's going to be a lot of interest in Jeff Brom around the country. And you know what? Here's the other thing, the dirty little secret. We're probably not done with jobs coming open.
Yeah, I can see that.
Florida
All right, so there's
State.
another team that has a listing right now that Lane Kiffin's name is in, and it's LSU. Alabama playing LSU. Kalshi has the money where people have put it, and here it is right here. 27% of the money right now is going to Lane Kiffin. But there was a time, look at this, where Nick Saban was actually the guy that they thought was going to be the head coach. He doesn't even show up anymore. But
yeah, there's a better chance that I'll be the coach at LSU than Nick Saban, Mick. Let's just put that out there right now.
It is. Like Saban, 77% of the money went to him on November 4th. And all of a sudden now it's swished. But Saban's third. So they got Lane Kiffin, John Summerall, Nick Saban. I just don't think that Nick Saban's going to coach again. Eli Drinkowitz, Jeff Brom, and Joe Brady. Joe Brady at 8%. I could see Joe Brady being the guy that ends up at LSU.
Yeah, and I think Brady could be in at Penn State as well. I think that's another place that I would watch for Joe Brady. There's some connection there. I think John Summerall is the leader in the clubhouse at Auburn right now, and they're going to talk to a lot of the people. But there's just so much, as you see, domino. I mean, what if Lane does leave? Well, then Ole Miss is a darn good job. He leaves that job a lot better than he found it, and the people there at Ole Miss, because of their support, have made it a better job. If Norvell gets fired at Florida State, there's another job. I think that's part of what's going on now at Virginia Tech. I think they'd love to have James Franklin. I think Franklin certainly has interest in that job, but I also think he maybe a slow plan a little bit to see what else might be out there.
Yep. Hey, guys, Kalshi.com, promo code Bama Tailgate, $10 free when you sign up with our link and trade up to $100. I'm with you on some of these. I think that and they don't have one for him staying at Ole Miss. Chris, I think he's leaving. I just do. I for whatever reason, that's just my gut feeling on it. Ole Miss has been a great fit for him, but it just, to me, I'd be shocked if he stays. But his team's like in position to make the SEC championship game. Bama's got some tough games left. Oklahoma, LSU, and Auburn, they can lose those. Texas A&M still has to play against Texas. Who knows what could happen there. They play Missouri, although Missouri's without their quarterback. And then they do have it, like you said, they have a chance to make a run. But crazy to think kind of the way that all these jobs have opened. And when you say that there could be another job open, do you mean in the SEC, like the SEC, or you mean just around the country?
No, I think Florida State, Kentucky, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that all three of them will come open, but I could see one or two. And then we mentioned the domino effect. If Ole Miss does come open, then there's Ole Miss. We don't know what's going to happen in Arkansas. Does Bobby Petrino get that job? I think that's certainly not a given that he will. If he doesn't, there's another job that's open. So I laugh. Who's going to fill all these jobs, Mick?
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to have coordinators that are, I think, good football coaches. They're going to get really good jobs. As I said, I was in Ohio State. Of course, if you're in Michigan, it's Ohio. I jest, but Brian Hartline's going to get a good job somewhere. The Ohio State OC. I mean, he's going to be a commodity. Colin Klein, the OC at Texas A&M, done a wonderful job with Marcel Reed. He's going to get a shot somewhere. Alex Golish has done a great. Now he's a head coach at South Florida. I think he's going to get Ryan Silverfield at Memphis. We talked about some of them. There are guys, head coaches in the G5 ranks right now, who probably it's never been a better time to be a successful coach than this year in the G5 ranks because of all these jobs that are open.
Yeah. Hey, isn't that the truth? Yeah, it's crazy. And then what also is going to happen this year too, Chris, is that some of these guys that just got fired are going to end up getting jobs. James Franklin could end up as a head coach this year. Hugh Freeze. I mean, I could see somebody hiring him. It's not like the guy forgot how to coach. Billy Napier. I've already heard his name kind of bandied around as a guy that could get a job. Might not be a SEC job, right? So some of these guys that have these big pedigrees could just go from one job to another.
Yeah. I think a lot of times ADs, though, are looking for that next guy, the guy that's up and coming. Now, some schools, you mentioned James Franklin. I have no doubt that James is going to get a job. I don't know where Hugh is. Remember, Hugh's, he's public. He's fighting cancer. He's supposed to have surgery in January. I don't know where he'll be with that when it comes time to maybe be a head coach somewhere else. Napier, I think, probably would be a G5 type of job. But you look at guys like Will Stein out at Oregon. I mentioned Colin Klein. There's guys that I think deserve a shot. Haven't gotten one to this point. I mean, I'll give you one. He's not going to get Auburn or Florida State or something like that. But look at the job Jerry Mack has done at Kennesaw State. He's coached in the NFL. He's been a head coach before at HBCU. He was at Tennessee for a couple of years. He's going to Kennesaw. I mean, that they didn't even was their first year as a football program, 2015.
Yeah,
I think they're in Marietta, right outside Atlanta. They're unbeaten in the Conference USA. I hope guys like that, who've done it at a lower level, who've proven that they can build a team, build a roster. Obviously, they don't have the kind of resources there that they would at Auburn or Arkansas or anywhere. But when you can coach, you can coach. And I hope guys like that. He's just one example. There's several other. There's Morris, he's a head coach at North Texas. But guys like that who've proven they can do it at a lower level, I hope they get legitimate looks. And you know what? They should with all these jobs. I mean, hell, the two of us might start getting phone calls at some point, Nick, if guys keep getting fired.
Yeah. You think, and this is my last question for you, do you think that Alabama could lose Kalen DeBoer?
No, I don't. I think he's I understand there's the West Coast connection. What happens if Lincoln Riley were to leave USC? Cohen's AD out there. But no, I don't. I've not heard that. I think what he was able to do and the way he was able to bounce back from that first game and the way his kids have responded, I don't think Alabama's going to let him go anywhere, number one. And I don't think he wants to. Now, Ryan Grubb, on the other hand, I would say he would get a shot. Kane Womack, who's led his football program, his own before at South Alabama, some of those guys might get shot, some of his coordinators. But no, I don't think Kalen's going anywhere. I mean, they're recruiting great. He's making a ton of money. I don't think you run to a challenge like that to replace a Nick Saban and walk away after 2 years. I just don't think I don't think that's in his DNA.
No, and he's starting to figure it out and then have the type of success where he might have a statue out in front of the stadium. he keeps doing what he's doing right now. Chris, how can everyone catch you at On3?
Well, on3.com, and I know they're doing some subscription specials right now, man. And this is, hey, if you love the coaching carousel and you love the countdown to who's going to be in the playoff and who's not, we got you covered. A lot of great teammates there at On3, and we, from recruiting to, as I said, the carousel to deep dives on coaches and teams, it's all right there. So on3.com.
All right, that's Chris Lowe. Guys, we're brought to you by Pearl River Resort, Philadelphia, Mississippi. The Timeout Sports Lounge, Vegas-style sports book, hour and a half from Tuscaloosa, 2 and change from Birmingham. And you can swing over there, and 20 big screen TVs. They get all the games. They got the windows. They got kiosks. Really easy trip. And with that said, here's Jay Coker to tell you about it. Chris, we'll talk to you next week. Roll Tide.
Okay.
I may not suit up on Saturdays anymore, but I'm still in the game.
Let's roll.
In here, I call the plays, make adjustments, and lay it on the line. Want to feel that fire, that rush? Then you've got to get in the game. I used to say it in the tunnel, and I still say it now. Let's roll.
We're presented by Bod Coach, and you can tell I'm slimming up over here, and it's because of Bod Coach. This is absolutely amazing. It's your personal trainer that is with you 24/7. So when I go to hotels or when I'm on the road, I type in, "Hey, look, I got equipment. This is what I have," and it'll make a workout specifically for me, what I want, what exercises I want. When I'm at home or I'm in a hotel and there's no way I can get to the gym, it'll say, "Hey, this is what I want to work on today," and it sends you personalized workout plans. It's really awesome. And they contacted me a few weeks ago to be a spokesman. I said, "Well, I want to try this." Bod Coach is fantastic. Like, I use it all the time. I mean, and if I'm telling you, man, like, it makes working out when you are on the go like me so much better. Just because I don't always know I didn't play football at Alabama. I didn't have Scott Cochran yelling, yeah, and telling me what workouts to do. So anyway, I'm going to put in the body on the YouTube all about Bod Coach. Get you guys signed up there, but tell them you heard it on Bama Tailgate.
When you head to the Smoky Mountains, it's only natural to visit Sevierville.
Even we had to check it out.
And we've been here our whole lives.
Experience the adventure of a lifetime.
I'm king of the world.
Even you can get a bird's eye view of the Smokies.
You're going down, Billy. Whoa.
Your Smokies start here.